just started out, like covering shows and just writing about music, and that's how the name Izzy Presley came about, because Tommy Elwell didn't have a very rock and roll name to it. I'm like, if I'm going to write about rock music, I might as well have something kind of cool. So I took Izzy because Izzy Stradlin played on the greatest album of all time, bar none, Appetite for Destruction, and Presley, of course, because Elvis is king, and that's kind of how that all started. And I was doing that with the magazine, and then all of a sudden I started covering sports for them, and I was covering the the Wild, the Vikings, the Twins, the Timberwolves, press box, credentialed, whole 9 yards. I was in with the whole press people. It was pretty cool. So I was doing that, and I fell into the radio gig with Rockin' 101, where I started the show called Under the Covers, and that was basically your favorite bands honoring their favorite bands, 1 hour every week. And they took me on as a sales guy, and one day the afternoon DJ just kind of walked out. It's like, who's gonna do the afternoon shift? He's like, I guess you're on. And then I never gave it up until I left.
We've got Izzy Presley with us today here on Build, Grow, and Enjoy. You were the sports and music director for RX Magazine. Tell us about the time there at RX Magazine.
Oh, that was a blast. It was RX Magazine and the Weekly Buzz newspaper. It was 2 magazines. The Weekly Buzz was a weekly thing, and then RX was a monthly entertainment magazine. And the sports part of it, that was really my favorite part of it. I did that wrote about sports for about 5 years, and I tell you what, being in the locker rooms and having the what's the word I'm looking for, like covering the Twins games. You get down there early and you're on the field during batting practice, and 1 week, I know 1 year I missed I think 1 home game. I covered that many games, and you get a camaraderie with the players. They know who you are, and it's really a fun deal. I miss it. I really do. I would love to be out here covering hockey right now, but there's so many sports outlets out here. It's so hard to get in, if you don't have an in. So, but yeah, I really missed it. I really enjoyed that.
Now, how did you get hooked up with them? What was the process of getting in with them?
When I was bartending, one of their sales guys came into the bar all the time, and he's like, "You want to write about music stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah," and that's kind of how it all started.
Wow. So, what was some of the more interesting highlights of being there?
Guar. My first interview was Guar, which was awesome. God, so many cool things came about because so many shows that I covered. I mean, I'm just trying to. Andrew Dice Clay, I got to interview. Buck Cherry, Eddie Trunk. That's how I became friends with Eddie Trunk. Actually, is when I did that first interview with him. And man, and all the sports people. Obviously, I mean, my first big sports interview was Mark Parrish. I mean, I became friends with Joe Mauer, and well, not friends, but he knows who I am. I tell girls that I know Joe Mauer. It didn't work at all, but it was worth a shot, right? But yeah, dude, there's so many. I just can't even think of them off the top of my head. Kevin Smith, Jay and Silent Bob guy. That's another one too. There's so many good ones.
Izzy Presley with us today here on Build, Grow, and Enjoy. If you want to get more information, check out Izzy Presley online. Where's the best spot to get a hold of you, my friend?
Oh, man, there's so many. Twitter, Izzy_Presley. Of course, my regular Facebook, which is Izzy Presley. My website is izzypresleyproductions.com. If you want for the podcast, it's facebook.com/anothereffingpodcast. And those are really the best places to find me.
Izzy Presley with us today here on the broadcast. He was afternoon drive host for Rockin' 101. We talked a little bit about that earlier. Tell me about Under the Covers. What exactly was Under the Covers?
Under the Covers, that was how I got into radio. I stopped in and talked to the GM at Rockin' 101. I'm like, hey, I got this. I had a couple ideas for shows before that. They just kind of didn't come through. And then this one, I'm like, dude, cover songs, hour a week. And he's like, well, what are you going to call it? I go, Under the Covers with Izzy Presley. He's like, dude, that writes itself. Write me up a list. And I made the list, and boom, there it was. I was on the air, and it's great because it was it was a rock station. It was my show, so I didn't have a program director telling me exactly what to play. It's like, this is what I'm going to play. This is what goes together well, and this is what I want to play. There was always a Nickelback free zone. Never played Nickelback on that show once, and I'm damn proud of that. I'd go from Metallica to Johnny Cash. It was cool. It was fun, and I'm still doing it to this day. Just online right now with you can get it on Spreaker. If you go to Spreaker.com/users/Izzy Presley, you can find that, and my podcast. So I do that weekly still to this day, and I love it. It's my baby.
Now, you were a celebrity host for the Monsters of Rock cruise in
Yeah.
2014. Tell me about this experience.
Yeah. Oh, man, that was a blast. We got involved with the Monsters of Rock cruise people when I was at the radio station, Rockin' 101. When the first cruise came around in 2012, we got involved with them and gave away a cabin. And we were the first station in the country to do anything with them, so they brought us on too. They just wanted us represented, so they gave us cabins and another cabin to give away. So we were on there the first 2 years, and then when I moved out here to California, I had this idea about like doing karaoke on the boat and like a Kiss jam, and I talked to Larry Moran, the guy that runs that whole thing, great guy, and I'm like, well, you do realize I'm not going to be with the radio station anymore? And he's like, really? You're coming out here that soon? I'm like, yeah, because he's based out here in LA also. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll just hire you on. I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden, boom, I was listed as a celebrity host. And I geeked out about that a little bit. So yeah, we hosted the karaoke, myself and my good friend Brian Ott from St. Cloud, Minnesota. He's a musician, a country musician, and he also does the karaoke stuff, locally around the St. Cloud area. And I brought him along with me. And so we did Gong Show karaoke, which was great. We had our judges were two of the guys from Firehouse, the singer and the bass player, and their names are escaping me right now because I'm an idiot. Michael Grant from LA Guns, Ace Von Johnson from Faster Pussycat, Gyps Enough was one of the judges for one of them, and yeah, it was just a blast. And we had this thing; it was called Gong Song of the Night. And we, because it was a Monsters of Rock cruise, and that's, hard rock, 80s and 90s hard rock stuff. So this girl came up, and right as Journey started, I gonged her. And I felt really bad because when we had after the finals, it was like kind of open karaoke. She came up, and she was actually really good. But what can you say?
Now, Izzy, tell us a little bit more about this moving to L.A. Why did you end up in L.A.?
Because I hate winter more than anything in the whole wide world. And every year, I just couldn't take it. It got worse for me every year. And I'm like, you know what? I came out here. I was originally going to move to Florida, and I actually did for a couple months a few years back. And I just kind of got months and had to come home. But I visited here in the winter of 2012, and I just fell in love with Hollywood. I fell in love with Los Angeles. It's like I need to be here, and I started saving. I started working the second job other than the radio station, and packed as much stuff as I could in my car and took off. And I tell you what, man, it's the greatest thing I ever did. I love it out here. It's heaven out here.
Now, why do you love L.A. so much?
Well, you got the scenery out here is amazing. It's like you've got palm trees. You go to the beach anytime you want. You got the mountains. I mean, it's just so much different, scenery out here. It's just beautiful. And then, of course, the top 1% of every culture comes here. I'm talking, of course, female looking wise. So the hottest girls in the world live here. The food options are amazing because you've got every ethnicity you can think of, and it's authentic. It's not like, Mexican in St. Cloud, Minnesota. That's not real Mexican food. I can get real Mexican food out here. It's just, and all cultures, actually. I mean, any culture you can think of, you can find authentic food out here, and I'm a food geek, so I love it. I knew about the traffic coming in. I can't complain about it. It's like moving up to Minnesota from here and complaining about the snow. You know about it going in. So I have I'm not allowed to complain about the traffic. It sucks at times, but what can you do? And I'm only 4.5 hours from Vegas.
Wow. Good stuff, man.
Yeah, man.
Now tell us about the first podcast here. Tell us a little bit about Another Effin' Podcast. Tell me about that.
Another Effin' Podcast. I had the idea before I moved out here, and I knew I was going to wait until I got out here to do it. And the reason it's called Another Effin' Podcast is because everybody and their grandma has a podcast.
Yep.
So I'm like, well, it's just another effing podcast, I guess. And it's like, boom, another thing, just kind of rang off of it. And, you know, I usually tend to stick to the music topics for the first few months. My roommate, he plays with the Richie Ramone band. So, and he's got the gift of gab, and he knows music very well. So he's been on here quite a few times. But being out here in L.A., it just opens up the possibilities for people for in-studio guests. Like I had Bobby Brown from the Cherry Pie video.
Wow.
Yeah, in my bedroom. In my bedroom, and that was the first thing I said when I got on we started recording. I'm like, okay, Bobby, before we go any further, I just need to say this: all the d-bags that I went to high school with that made fun of me every day, Bobby Brown's in my bedroom right now, so screw you. So I mean, it was that, and like you remember Billy Vera?
Yes.
Yeah, I had Billy Vera on, and that was an amazing interview. Dude, he's got a 40-plus year history in the music industry. Check his stuff out. I mean, he's more than just at this moment. That dude is like one of the old school blue-eyed soul guys. Check him out. Like, you know, A's for Faster Pussycat. I'm friends with all these people now, and they're happy to come and do my show. It's great. I love it. I just absolutely love it. Next week I have Big John. He was Bret Michaels' bodyguard on. What was his reality show?
Yeah,
he was looking for abroad.
Was it the bus one?
Yeah. Something of rock.
I don't remember. I know what you're talking about.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a great story to tell, and I can't wait to hear that. And you know, it's just fun. It's just a way to do it uncensored. It's a way to do it exactly what I want to do. That's the beauty about podcasts, and I'm sure it's a beauty about what you do too. You don't have a program director looking over your shoulder every 5 seconds saying, you can say this, you can't say this is what you're going to talk about, and that's it. And that's what I love about the podcast format. You know, it takes a guy like me who's a former radio guy who had a problem with radio functions. And as much as I loved being in radio, I mean, there was things about radio that I hated, and being able to do it myself the way that I want it. Granted, I don't have the listenership that I would have on terrestrial radio yet, but being able the way I want to do it, man, that's just what it's all about. And I think you can understand that.
Now, Izzy, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing with the podcast. I know you mentioned some of the guests, but
yeah,
where can we find this? And tell me a little about some of the feedback you've gotten on it.
Oh, people seem to love the show. You can find it on iTunes. Just Google or just go into iTunes and put in Izzy Presley, and you'll find me. And so you can download it there. Just go and subscribe and click those 5 stars and tell me how much you love it. That's fine with me. Spreaker also, Spreaker.com/users/Izzy Presley. You can find it there. On Facebook, Facebook.com/Another Effin' Podcast. And like I said, weekly I've got a good friend that I grew up with, and he's unfortunately stuck in the middle of Wisconsin now and stuck in the middle of Packer country. So I get him on every week, and we talk about fantasy football because he kind of knows what he's talking about in fantasy football. He's in like 9 leagues every year, and we get a weekly Packer fan report, which is usually pretty funny, out of him. And we do that, and I do guests, and every once in a while I'll throw a tune in if it's a musical guest, and that's really where I go with it. It's just fun. It's unfiltered. It's people talking about what they want to talk about,
That's really cool. We've got Izzy Presley with us today here on the program. He joins us live talking about himself, also talking about these podcasts. Now, you also do some PR things on the side. Tell me a little bit about your PR business.
Yeah, I fell into that when I was actually doing the magazine, and that was actually when I moved to Florida, and I had started talking to Adam, who you had on last week, Adam Muskowitz, and it was about the Elvis movie, and I'm like, dude, I can try to get you some interviews, and he's like, yeah, man, do whichever you want to do, and that's kind of how it all started, and dealing with publicists, I'm like, I can do this, so I just started doing it, and I rounded up a group of people that I knew back home, and boom, that's just really how it started,
Wow.
Yeah, quite enthralling, eh?
Now, putting some of these folks together and putting some of these different things out there, where do you see the PR end of it going?
I don't dabble in it that much. If I had, if I had somebody come up to me and say, "Hey, here, I'll give you $10,000 to do my PR for a year," I'm not going to say no. I mean, I'll still dabble in it if the right opportunity comes around. If like let's say if Pastor Pussycat comes to me and, hey, we got a new record coming out, give you $1,000 to do PR for 2 months, I'm not going to say no. But I'm not really out pursuing it that much. You got to remember, out here in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, Beverly Hills, there's like 9,000 PR firms. Everybody does PR. And I knew there would be a lot of people out here doing it. I didn't realize there would be that many, and it's like, there's other ways I can spend my time. I was an extra in this pilot, a couple weeks ago. I would rather spend my time doing that and making a name for myself and building the Izzy Presley empire.
That's awesome. Tell us about this pilot you were involved in.
It was called I can't think of the name of it. It's a friend of mine. She works for Miramax. From St. Cloud, Minnesota. Go figure. And we actually just got hooked up for this through a mutual friend. And it was called, hold on. I can't remember what it was called. I'll find it in a second here. Come on. Almost there. Good. No, not. It wasn't Fargo, but it ended with Argo. Okay, I went back too far, of course. Basically, when I was playing, my role was creepy guy, drinking beer, looking like a hard ass, oogling hot woman singing. That was pretty much my role. And in the other scene, I was creepy guy sitting at a bar, drinking beer, giving evil eye, which I did very well.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, before we let you go, how do we connect with you online? How do we get a hold of all the stuff that you're involved in?
IzzyPresleyProductions.com is the main hub. You can find the podcast there. You can find the Three Sides of the Coin podcast there. That's the KISS podcast that I do some PR for. Some good friends of mine. I'm going to try to get Michael on here for you, in a couple weeks.
That's cool.
Facebook, I'm a friend whore. Go ahead and add me, Izzy Presley. Twitter, Izzy_Presley. And, of course, on the for the podcast, it is Facebook.com/another effing podcast, which you can also find on Spreaker. Hold on. I think Cargo is the name of the film.
Okay.
Cargo. I found it. I knew I'd find it. Then, so Spreaker, you find the podcast, and also the Under the Covers. Under the Covers is also on Facebook, Facebook.com/Under the Covers Radio. And then I'm also part of another podcast that I do with the Three Sides of the Coin guys called Dropping the Needle. And that's another music-based one, which is a lot of fun. So That's the best way to find me. Or you can just email me, Izzy at izzypresleyproductions.com.
Good stuff. Well, Izzy, thanks for being with us today. Really enjoyed the conversation, my man.
Hey, man, it was an honor. Thank you for having me. I've been waiting to do some stuff like this for a while, so it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Good stuff. Well, we'll keep in touch, my friend, and we'll talk
absolutely.
soon. Appreciate it, man.
Look